Good morning. Welcome to the Jefferson County Post and our interview with Jefferson County Commission Chairman Jim Carmichael. We welcome Jim Carmichael to the Jefferson County Post page. And before we get started, I'm going to jump in here and give a shout out to our sponsors, Good Old Boys Golf Carts at 434 Tennessee Highway 92 in Dandridge. And they have a new store in Sevierville as well, so check them out for all your golf cart needs. And Dr. Warren Stinson at 113 East Broadway Boulevard in Jefferson City for all your dental needs. Thank you to our sponsors. Welcome, Chairman Carmichael. This is an interesting time of the year in Jefferson County.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, we are glad to have you. We're hoping to get some clarity on some things that are going on in Jefferson County. And once again, we're going to debunk a myth or two that's on Facebook. And why don't we just jump in with that? Let's just jump in with Facebook myths and debunk them. So, recently there was a fairly lengthy thread of discussion regarding your voting as a chair. Mm-hmm. Would you please explain why you vote as a chair and if every chair who is not the mayor would be voting?
Well, first and utmost, Tennessee law states that every commissioner votes in every meeting because your power really lies in the meeting itself. So first, I'm a commissioner, and I have to be elected again to be a chairman. So I still have the privilege of voting unless I abstain for cause. In other words, any commissioner can abstain to vote, but you're required to vote. You have to place a vote, either thumbs up, thumbs down, or abstain from the vote, period. And Tennessee enforces that. But me being a county commissioner as chairman, I have to separate my chairman duties from my voting duties. And that's why I have to act the way I do during the meeting, because I'm a moderator and I have to be equal time to everybody in the room to maintain order, but I still vote. So therefore, you still got, when everybody's present, 21 commissioners to vote. And when the mayor is the chairman, he cannot vote unless it's a tie. But if it's a tie and he actually votes, he does no longer retains the authority to veto. He'll lose that power. So, it's either black or white right there. It's just how it works.
So in a nutshell, the state provides that everybody in Jefferson County has equal representation, and they would not have equal representation if the chair was a sitting commissioner and did not vote.
Sure. Well, my constituents wouldn't want me to be a chairman if I lost my right to vote.
That would be absolutely true.
They're not represented at that time.
And that there was a lot of discussion on Robert's Rules of Order. So for clarity, Robert's Rules of Order are the fallback for the Jefferson County Commission, but you have your own rules and procedures.
Yes.
And then state law supersedes that.
Right.
So it's state, local law, rules of procedure, and then Robert's Rules of Order if there's a question.
How I explain it to everybody is the state tells you can have ice cream, and at the county level they tell you what flavor you can have. And that's the best way that I can explain that, because most people don't understand when I say you can change the flavor. The sitting county commission can vote John and Scarlett used to say sell the roof off the courthouse. And 11 votes to sell the roof, but it takes 14 to keep you from buying it back. So, you've got to separate out the duties of what you do as a commissioner. And there's a lot of people that like to live in the gray area and talk about something they really don't understand. But Robert's Rule of Order is the basis for how the meeting is operated, not the rules and regulations the county's run by. That's the comptroller's office. We have to answer, when we have a meeting, I have 7 to 10 days that meeting has to be registered with the comptroller's office for review. And if there's a problem in that meeting, I get a phone call.
So to debunk this social media myth, it is not that you are taking privilege to vote. It is that it is your duty.
It is my duty
to vote. So now that's one that we can lay to rest now.
Sure.
And any chairman in the future, should you decide to give up the chair, or should someone else decide to run and you decide to step, whatever happens, if another county commissioner steps into that chair, they're going to vote.
They're going to vote. That is correct.
All right, so.
And if they don't vote, they're misrepresenting their constituents from the district they're from because they didn't get represented in that vote.
And you're going to get a little call from the comptroller's office.
You sure are. You know, that nice lady will call you up and she'll say, I know what you said. Now, what did you mean to say?
So now let's talk. This is a very busy time in Jefferson County. We've got a couple of things going on. Number one, we're in an election season.
Sure.
And election season is always vibrant in Jefferson County, but this is a particularly vibrant election season. We have a lot of interest in county commission seats,
Sure.
which is an interesting thing because sometimes it's hard to get people out to run. Now we have a plethora of people who are running for county commission seats, but you have some county commissioners who have elected to not seek re-election. So there is going to be a change in the county commission, even if everybody who is sitting there goes back in. There's still going to be a change.
You know, in 2010, when I come on here, I've been here 16 years, come September 1st, and you know, they were 10 new commissioners in my class. There was 5 of us that all graduated in 1983 together. But you know, what I'm seeing different this time, after 4 elections, this will be my 5th election, and by the way, it will be my last. You know, I fully plan on retiring after this one if I get reelected. If I don't, I might retire early. But you know, what I'm seeing that's different in this election is a big influx of people that really don't understand what commissioners do. They really don't understand. They're like, well, I want to make a change. You know, one of my constituents come to me and said, well, what are you going to do about cheaper housing for poor people? And I said, that's really not a commission issue. You know, we really don't address that. We're legislators for the county. So there's people right now running and campaigning for office that actively needs to come to meetings and learn what exactly the purview is of a commissioner.
Now,
and what you actually
a
do.
funding body, correct?
You know, and your true power lays in the vote. When all the commissioners that come to a meeting, if it's 21, seems like our average here lately has been 18, is about all we can get here at one time. And you know, I get a lot of input about, well, there's too many commissioners. Well, when you have all the committees and all the duties of being a commissioner, and you know, it ain't like any of us do it for the money, but what happens is it's hard to get everybody there. So, you know, we've been down on attendance, and you know, the main thing is if you're going to elect a new commissioner, the first thing you need to know is, are they going to show up?
I would think that would be very beneficial for their
Sure.
constituents. You were talking about things that the commission can't do. So let's talk real quick about elections.
Mm-hmm.
So the last meeting, there were some people who stood up and spoke, and they were very distraught because some of the voting, the annex areas of voting are not going to be open like they have been in the past. And that was a decision of the county commission or the election commission, and tell us how.
The county commission can hold no purview in anything to do with elections, because we're all elected officials. They have an oversight board, the election commission does, and they follow state guidelines very closely. And you know, to me, what the main issue was with closing down some polling for early voting is the security of the machines when nobody's there. And that's where they have to be locked up. Only one person can have the key, and we have a new administrator in that position. And you know, I agree with the people that I think it should be open more than what it is, but all of this campaign fraud at the federal level, at the state level, all of the different frauds that are being exposed that people's talking about. And I always remember, if you heard it on the internet, don't make it that it's right or true.
Correct.
You know, there's falsehoods and everything. People can missay something. I've had to take retractions and say, hey, wait a minute, I didn't say what I meant. We're back to that lady at the comptroller's.
Right.
I know what you said, now what did you mean to say? So we always got to check ourselves. But you know, I've never seen in an election cycle like we're looking at right now, of the amount of people that's wanting to get interested, that it's going to take time. When you elect a new commissioner, my first term as a new commissioner was a learning experience. I had to learn where the guardrails were, what the purview is. And you know, that's the key to being successful. And you know, they say, oh, we want term limits. Well, if it takes you 3 or 4 years to learn how to be a commissioner, that next 4 is going to be rather exciting. And if you quit after that, it's always a learning term. And you know, that's where you're going to be in this.
And there are going to be several, make no mistake, because people are not running, there are going to be several new commissioners, no matter what. Because
at least 10, maybe more.
Because there are several that have chosen not to run for re-election.
Sure.
And then, of course, both of our mayoral candidates are also, well, we have 3 mayoral candidates, but 2 of our mayoral candidates are also sitting county commissioners, and they will no longer be on the county commission either way.
See, you can't have 2 political offices at the same time.
Right.
And you know, if you switch from one to the other, you got to resign one before you can accept the other one. So, you know, chances are they will never, you know, most of the time when someone runs for mayor, if they don't get elected, they're gone from the commission and they may not never be back.
Right.
History proves they don't normally come back.
So, to clarify, county commission has absolutely nothing to do with where the voting sites are. There's nothing that the county commission can do about that.
The county commission holds no connection whatsoever. The only thing that we actually do is we look at their funding, and part of their funding comes from us, and the rest comes from the state of Tennessee. You know, just here at the meeting before last, you know, they come to us wanting more money to do some changes and some different stuff, you know, and that we'll have to deal with that in probably the March or April meeting. But you know, that's the only purview the county has. You know, it's just like the mayor's office getting called about the water outages. Right. You know, and there was a lady actually come to our meeting Tuesday night and wanted to talk about water, and Jefferson County is not in the water business. You know, that's the cities, that's KUB, it's how they get their water. So the county commission has absolutely nothing to do with that. But see, we've got to get that information out to where people can have it readily available, to where they understand when they get your bill, that's who you got your water from.
Right.
And you know, the county holds no purview.
Yes.
When I say purview, we have nothing to do with that.
Yes, that was another myth that was a social media myth, was that the county was in some way responsible or a decision maker, which the county is not in any way a decision maker. So really coming and complaining to the county commission, although people feel like they don't know where to go, that really doesn't mean anything other than just get it off your chest.
Mainly what I get is a lot of people will call me and they will confuse Jefferson City with Jefferson County. They actually think they're one and the same, and they're not.
Right.
You know, Jefferson City does their own thing in their little end of the world, and Jefferson County is the land around that city minus the growth boundary. So, you know, they'll be talking about water, and they will be saying Jefferson City one moment and then say Jefferson County, and that confuses people that are listening.
So you just brought up something, so let's move to that. There was a resolution that was presented about annexation, and you made the point, which was a valid point, that on the state level, the resolution dealt with asking the state to set some guidelines about what had to happen when someone was annexed. We already have guidelines in Jefferson County, correct?
We sure do.
Can you tell us what that process is for annexation? It has to be within the growth boundary.
Well, sure. See, what happens is, back in 2016, I went in as chairman in 2014, and previous mayor had brought to us the growth boundaries of the cities and said, really, I don't care what you do with it. Okay, I didn't know in respect to the growth boundaries how the growth boundaries work, but every city has to make a growth boundary by the law, state of Tennessee. So I ended up having to hire an outside attorney and drive to Nashville one day to meet with 3 appellate judges for why the county commission in Jefferson County didn't approve all the growth boundaries. And I had to be re-educated because I had no idea what the growth boundaries do. To be in a growth boundary, you have to meet all the qualifications. There has to be impact studies. There has to be all of this paperwork done before you can have and register a growth boundary. And that is to where the cities, what you're doing is a city can move into the country so much in a stated X amount of time. But you have to request to be a part of that.
Or it goes to referendum.
Or it goes to referendum, that is
general.
correct. So most people never understand that. To me, my land's just as safe in a growth boundary as it would be if I was just out in the country by myself. Because at least being in a growth boundary puts me legitimately, there has to be what's called show cause. Mm-hmm. They gotta have show cause for why they'd want to do that. They can't just step out there and take that. You're seeing developments right now, just like Jefferson City, housing developments that are really out in the county, but it's inside Jefferson City's growth boundary, so they get the first say-so, just like in White Pine here a while back on Harrison Road. The city of White Pine approved for a record service to be in a spot and changed from a residential zone, agriculture, to a C2. And the county commission, we can't do spot zoning. But what the city did is they went by their standard. But when you come into the growth boundary, into the county commission standard, that's called spot zoning. And it would never carry because it don't meet the county's criteria. So therefore the county had the final say, but we didn't hear the first argument. Because the county had to approve that first before it could go back to the city to actually become law.
Okay.
And see, that's where most people don't get that is, just like in that vote, we voted to not support the resolution, but as chairman, I was going to say, this don't meet the criteria and I'm going to allow it to come to a vote. You're going to have to get with the criteria of the county because it's actually a waste of the commission's time to even bring that to us because that's spot zoning. You're clearly in a residential area.
So this resolution that was sent in the support of some sort of legislation actually would not really impact Jefferson County in any way. We already have a structure in place.
All the safeguards are there. And it's been there for quite a time. Now that I fully understand how the mechanism works, but the general public, a lot of times we choose to hear certain words and other words we don't. A lot of people nowadays want to hear their opinion out of your mouth. And they're not really listening good when you explain to them, but there has to be a basis for every decision. And that way things can't run amok like they have before.
So that was a part of this last meeting. I believe, as I recall, you actually voted against the resolution, correct?
Sure did.
Yes, because there was already something.
Well, actually, it was redundant.
Right.
You was adding on something that's already been done, and you can go to any city and request it, and they'll give you a map of the growth boundary.
Right.
They will give you show cause. They will give you what the city council has looked at, just like with their industrial committees and all the subcommittees. They have done that. So saying we're going to do it again, are you saying they lied the first time, the second time, or what are we saying by doing it twice?
So there again, that's another myth that we can debunk, is that is actually necessary, because Jefferson County does already have something, a policy in place, and it's been in place for a long time, and it works for Jefferson County.
Well, I would just like to add right there that, this is why the county commission is so important to me. No matter what the city growth boundary says, no matter what the county says, it comes down to the vote of the commission. So when you vote for your commissioners, please take into consideration the basis that they base their thoughts on, what experience they've had in life, if they've operated a business at what level. We need commissioners that actually understand what the county does, what the problems are for the county. And when it's a learning process, it takes time.
Yes.
And experience is the best teacher. After 16 years, I've seen a lot of things happen. As chairman, I've had to go back in and rehear something and re-vote it because the state said, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to back up and change.
There are definitely rules in place that guide everything that's done.
Sure.
So let's talk about the refinancing of $12 million. Can you give people the short I guess, the short version of what happened with that refinance.
Okay, what happened was, we had the refurb at the Jefferson County High School.
Right,
Okay, we did a interest-only loan for quite a few years. It's the only way the county could afford that. I actually voted against that financing because I didn't believe in it. But you know, it was at an interest rate that was actually hurting us.
right.
So what this refinance is there's $12.8 million of that we could actually refinance it and actually save the county just under $4 million. It's 3.8 something, so I don't remember the exact numbers, because if I remembered it, I'd probably be lying to you. But you know, that's how much money we can save in a refinance. Now, it's gonna cost us a few thousand to refinance it, to sell bonds to Cumberland Securities and what we need to do. But you know, we have to look at the interest rate. You know, if Jefferson Countyans can save dang near $4 million, that's worth doing. So the big debate was, do we take money out of the debt service to pay that down?
Right.
Okay, if you've got money in debt service and you're collecting a little over 3.7% in interest, and we can sell bonds and borrow money at 2.75 to 2.8, somewhere right there. You know, it's according to what the market's actually doing. So we was actually making a profit on this deal.
Right. So that passed.
Sure.
I think the vote was 17-1.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jefferson County has the opportunity. I think they said that the life of this is what, 10 years?
10 years.
But possibly a little bit, could get it down a little bit, where I guess what they call the call would be when you're able to actually pay it.
Sure.
Pay it off.
But you know, robbing debt service, see, we just took a little over 12.4 million out to do the Jefferson City Elementary School
Right.
rebuild. And you know, that brought our debt service way down.
Right.
So, you know, we're down about 14 million right there, but see, we need enough money in debt service so that if we had a catastrophe, that we can fund 2 years and pay our debt.
Right.
That's what we need.
So that's a bonus for Jefferson County. And that's a good thing because we're going into budget season.
We sure are.
And so enlighten us on what it looks like. How are we sitting in Jefferson County and what are going to be our challenges?
Well, the challenges is going to be is last year we funded so close to the ground zero that it's going to be hard to have any leeway in this budget. You know, by the time we put everything in the tax rate last year, we just had 151,000 of unencumbered money left. So therefore, you know, you're looking at everything, you're cutting down the deal. This county is real slim on its budget.
So wait, let's explain to folks because not everybody goes to every meeting. And so what you're saying is after the property tax rate was set and all the expenditures were known within reason. I mean, you have things that come up. But you're saying that there was just north of $100,000 left over. In other words, the property tax rate did not bring in a boon of money.
No.
With lots of extra laying there.
You know, see, a number that everybody needs to think about right now, all these new homes being built, everybody's wanting to talk about that. And, you know, I got some new figures here a couple of weeks ago that I've been analyzing. And, you know, for every dollar that we take in on homeowner property tax, we're spending $1.07. And, you know, this is what people need to be thinking about. You know, our taxes are so much cheaper here than the people that's moving in here. You know, the people that's moved in here has more than doubled the value of our property by what they have paid for property. So therefore, our standard of living is changing. So that's the challenge for the commission right now, is we gotta find neutral ground to fund off of. We got people that's still making $13 an hour.
Right.
But our benefits make up for that. But you know, when you start talking about the taxes and the property tax, I think that's a big number. For every dollar that comes in, we're spending 7 cents more.
I think that a lot of people don't realize that. They say, oh, well, my property taxes are X amount of dollars. And they are.
Sure.
And yes, they have gone up a little bit. The property tax has gone up a little bit. Actually, what's really gone up was the property assessment values,
Yes.
which is what really impacted people's pocketbooks. It wasn't what the county commission said as the property tax rate. It was the increase in the value of their
And you know,
home.
as long as we do what I call we're a bedroom community in Jefferson County. We don't have a lot of industry, but we need some good business here that is money from outside of the county.
With
We need
those
money
tourism
coming in.
dollars,
That's our tourism money now. Now previously, I wanted to buy some land beside the landfill that we could kind of hit two birds with one stone. You know, Jefferson County, I feel like we need an event center. We need something to bring groups of people in here that wants to play sports, wants to have concerts. We need to be doing something that don't eat a lot of land, that we can bring dollars in. You know, just like in Sevier County, you know, the ballpark, they got moved to Knoxville. Well, you know, that's a pretty big hit for them because they was getting that tax revenue off of it. You know, just like the rock quarry in question over here. You know, there is money. We're losing thousands of dollars a month right there. And you know, you got your peoples against it, and you got the people that's for it. But when it comes down at the end of the day, we've got to have enough money to run this county. We've got to be able to afford to pay the bills. And we can't retain good help anywhere, our employees all the way through the county, if we can't pay them what it's worth to come to work and do the job.
One of the things that came out at the last county commission meeting that Mayor Potts brought was that there is some chatter, I guess, in Nashville regarding setting a limit on how much you can increase property taxes, I guess, in one
cycle.
And so for a county like Jefferson County, should something come up where there was really a need for money, that could be very impactful because property taxes are our cushion, correct?
Yeah.
That's what we pay for our bills with.
That property taxes, how we pay for the bill, but you know, in the state legislature, they're talking like a 2% cap.
Wow.
And a 2% cap can throw the brakes on a lot of things.
Right.
And you know, we're in a position now that we're running more ambulances than we ever had. We're running more sheriff's vehicles than we ever had. Everything that we're doing, Jefferson County was never prepared for. Our infrastructures, there's no way they can keep up. You know, just here a few weeks ago with the water development in Jefferson City. You know, county ain't the water business, but you know, before we can add a lot more to this county, we've got to add a lot of infrastructure to this county.
Right.
And it comes down to, we gotta find a happy medium that we can live with them.
So you are interested in bringing in some monies that come from people coming to Jefferson County, spending their money in sales tax, not property tax, because you don't want to spend that extra 7 cents and going home.
Just like our truck stops at the 412 up here at the 417, you stop and look at the sales tax that they bring in a day. Now, how many of them people are Jefferson Countyans, and how many of them are what I refer to as foreigners? Mm-hmm. You know, if you're a native, you live in Jefferson County, and to me, you're a foreigner if you don't. But you know, it's just like on Friday night. You know, how many people in Jefferson County drive somewhere else to get something to eat?
That's true.
There's a lot of that goes on. I would like to see better restaurants. I would like to see places to where when people are passing through, you know, if you sit and you look at the model of Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, you know, they're the perfect storm. Everybody's driving through that place, but there ain't that many stay there. There's a lot of people renting cabins there, but they don't stay there.
So they don't use their schools, they don't use their services.
So we're back to that $1.07 that we're spending.
Right.
You know, you get X amount of dollars, and you know the penny now is worth more than the penny has more than doubled since I've been on this commission.
Right.
And it's hard to wrap your brain around that it's costing this much more money. But you know, we went from 14,000 landowners to over 40 now.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big number for that many different landowners. And you know, it's gobbling up farmland at a massive rate. And I can't blame the farmers and their families. That land may not never be worth that again, and they're actually paying them because they can only fight it so long.
It's hard to make a living.
You know, everybody says, well, I want to live in a rural area. Well, that's fine and dandy. Now somebody's got to pay the bill to live there.
Right.
So you got to decide, we can't rob Peter to pay Paul. Somebody's going to get a bad check.
Right.
So, you know, that's where we're at.
So we're going into this budget season. What are you worried about?
Us against them rhetoric of the division of the commission. You know, I see a division right now that's slowly grown the last 4 years, and it's like it's a us against them deal, and who's gonna suffer is the county. You know, who's actually gonna suffer through this? And you can't have this kind of division. We gotta get like-minded people that wanna sit at the table and discuss the dollars and cents of this county. And they gotta discuss how we're here, why we're here. Okay, now how are we gonna pay for this? Okay, yeah, everybody's harping about roads right now, okay? You know, Joe Patterson, this man elected to redo the roads, to maintain the roads. Okay, if he's gonna come out and repave everything in a 10-year turnaround, who's gonna pay for that?
Right.
Who wants to pay a third more on their taxes to drive on different roads? So, you know, there's gotta be an average here for everybody. We still got a lot of gravel driveways in Jefferson County. There's a lot of pavings and a lot of nice neighborhoods. That's fine and dandy. But we can't base all of our decisions on the more upper class or the more lower class. We gotta have something that works for everybody. We gotta be fair to everybody. The person that's living paycheck to paycheck, they can't just keep being hit. So we as a commission, we've got to sit down and figure out how can we bring money into this county that don't cost us to keep it up.
Right.
I mean, go to Knoxville and look at Thompson Bowling. You know, they have them big concerts and now they bring in $100, $150, $200 a ticket. They'll have thousands of people there at a time. If Jefferson County had a piece of any of that, and we only had to deal with them people a couple nights a month, an event center, have a convention center to where people can come and have meetings, have professional meetings and stuff. And see, that's money brought into this county through corporations, and we don't have the corporations here. So we gotta have us our new cash cows, what I'm saying.
So we've got some work to do in Jefferson County. Is what you're saying.
If we don't hustle, we're gonna get gobbled up.
So,
And when I say gobbled up, that sounds like a kid's term, but Knoxville and Marshtown's gonna meet if Jefferson County don't do something.
so I'm going to put you on the spot here. Are we looking at a property tax increase?
I'm hoping that we can limit it to a very small one. But right now with Harn, new worker in the VSO office, we're looking at Frank Herndon's office is gonna need one, if not two more people. So, you know, we've done spent a penny already. There's a penny there that we gotta come up with funding. And you know, the rollover, we can't rob from it no more because all recurring expenses have to be put into the tax rate.
Right.
Now, last year, when we reinstated our wheel tax, see, we went a couple of years there without that $25. Now it's $35. But see, that money's being divided up and we're buying capital project stuff with it.
Right.
So we didn't get the impact that we was looking for in the county just straight up 101 budget.
And then you were starting the race 2 lanes behind, right?
Sure.
That's,
Well, see, what we had to do was make up that million that we didn't have.
right.
And now that new wheel tax brings us in a little over $1.4 million.
So budget season's, it's on the horizon, it's on us. Going to be sitting down in March, and you're starting with charitable nonprofits.
We always
Yes.
start off with nonprofits. That's all your charitables.
And of course, you know, you have your natural increases like everybody else does at home. And as you said, there's already almost a penny, and you can't cut a penny in half, so it's a penny. So it's going to be an interesting budget season, and it's coming during election season, which brings with it its own personality.
Sure.
To meetings. So everybody has a sound bite, and so it should make for an interesting budget time. Hopefully the public will stay aware and make informed decisions, and the county commission will do the same. And it is not a place I would want to be. I do not envy you at all. But overall, what can we see coming up on the horizon besides budget? What are you looking at? Is there anything new, big coming that we should be looking for?
Well, there's, you know, we're going to have to look at the Justice Center. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Jefferson County has been very fortunate. You know, I'm going to blow my own horn here because, you know, we have a very good bond rating. because we've been very judicial with our money. We've been very careful. We haven't run up debt. We've been paying debt off, and we're getting down to where it's very manageable. Okay, as we do that, there's going to be stuff that we can actually do through cash money and stop paying as much interest. But you know, you're always going to have to buy bonds to do things. You know, the county's always going to have a project that we got to work on. But you know, we've got our schools in good shape. It used to be all about the school budget. And you know, it's not as much anymore because we've had a strong sales tax. Now, what's going to hurt that is when the sales tax starts faltering and backing up. You know, we've enjoyed 7 to 8, 9% growth. And you know, it's been strong, but at what point do we peak out and start going on the backside of this graph? And you know, that's the part that worries me, is when you start having to cut back from things. You know, you got money right now, because you know, the schools get the lion's share of that sales tax.
Right.
But you know, when you start actually spreading it out over the county, everything we're doing is costing really too much money. You know, the project out at the garage, to build onto the garage.
Right.
You know, we added 3 bays to the garage, and you know, we're up to 800,000 range.
It is expensive.
And you know, everything that we go to buy has got so many rules and stipulations to it that, you know, I like to use the word pathetic a lot, because it's just got a wow to it. But you know, that's rules that are imposed by the state and the federal government. You know, that the mayor's been very effective with getting us a lot of free money from a lot of different places. That's really helped us. But you know, the biggest drag that's going to be in this budget season is, you know, you got people that's campaigning on the idea that, oh, we're going to save 8-10%. There's no way. There's no way we can pay the bill. We're too tight now. There's nothing extra there. And you know, listening to the candidates talk, you know, I'm like, guys, I've been here a long time. You know, I guess me and Sammy Solomon's 2 of the oldest now, that we've had 2 pass away, you know, and much respect to Mr. Terry Dockery and John Mills Carlick, because they were a major asset to this county.
Yes, they were.
And you know, that was, I'm not going to say they're irreplaceable, but we'll miss them 20 years from now, because they both made a very big impression on Jefferson County government and how it operated. And you know, I'm trying to pull up the slack, but you know, I work a full-time job. A lot of the commissioners work full-time jobs. The people that's retired can spend more time doing this than we can. But you know, Jefferson County is slowly turning into a retirement community. My question to the voters that's watching this today is, can your children afford to keep what you're going to leave them? That's the biggest question that I've had asked me in the last 6 months, is that what I own now, my kids can't make enough money to pay the tax on it.
Right.
At what point are we taxing ourselves out of existence? At what point do we have a balance for what we're doing?
Right.
And you know, the big cuts, they're not there. There'll be no heroes. You know, and it's just a big old sandwich and everybody's gonna have to take a bite. So we gotta find that medium. We gotta always be looking where that next dollar's gonna come from. And we can't just keep going to the property tax to make that money. We gotta have different avenues. We gotta look at this hotel motel tax we're bringing in that can only be spent for recreation and development. You know, Jefferson County should be buying land. We should be looking at developing something that's going to build us a tax base.
And I think that seems to be one of the misconceptions in the public, is that, oh well, if you can only use that money for certain things, then why do we want to bring in tourists? Because even though you can only use that hotel motel tax for certain things, those people who come in, they buy gas, they eat food. So you're looking at pumping up your sales tax with your...
You know, one of my friends years ago that I hung out with for quite a while, you know, worked at the Waffle House here at Dandridge at 417. And when the Bass Pro come in, the week before the Bass Pro, their numbers at the Waffle House doubled.
I'm sure.
That weekend, it triples.
I'm sure.
And you know, when everybody leaves, it's like it's a ghost town for a few days because everybody got geared up for when it was busy. And see, that's where Jefferson County needs to excel into the tourism side. You know, we're not going to have a Dollywood. But you know, it takes stuff like that brings in clean money. What I look at is clean money. You're not dealing with a big factory over here that gobbled up 200 acres to run a big corporation and all of that. I would rather have the people come in, spend the weekend, hey, come to our convention center, have a ball game down at the ball field, and you know, next week they're gone. But they leave a lasting impact.
Right.
You know, we're centrally located, and Jefferson County should be using that. You know, a lot of the candidates want to talk about, you know, the future. What's my vision? My vision is to not have to go to property tax every 15 minutes to pay a normal bill. You know, how many people can take their paycheck at the end of the week, and by the time you divide it up, you got X amount of dollars left. Mm-hmm. Now, what can you afford to do with that, or had you better keep it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And on that note, it'd be great to encourage people in Jefferson County to spend your dollars in Jefferson County.
Sure would. We would thank you for it.
Yeah. If you're going to go out to dinner, look to your local restaurants. If you're going to get gas in Jefferson County. Purchase your food.
Your cars.
Your
tractors.
Shop at home. That would be great. Thank you very much, Chairman. I know it's going to be an exciting season coming up. Budget's always an exciting and a little bit stressful time. So we will be checking back in with you and get some updates on what's going on and how Jefferson County sits right now. I know the schools I'm going to put you on the spot here. I know the schools just got awards.
No,
I wouldn't do that, would I? They just got $1.2 million for their good grade cards at several schools. And kudos to Jefferson County schools for that. So several of their schools got A's and a lot were just on the line.
Just at the edge.
Just on the edge of an A. What grade would you give Jefferson County right now as far as our fiscal health and where we sit and the things we need to do?
I've got a lot of friends that live all over the United States, and I talk to a lot of other commissioners in other places. And you know, the people in Jefferson County, I wish they realized that we have done a really good job here. Our bond rating says it all. We've been very judicial with your money. And you know, don't buy into the federal hype of Doge and all the stuff that they're talking about that's went on, because Jefferson County don't have that problem.
Right.
You know, we're audited monthly.
Right.
There's nowhere that you're going to steal money in Jefferson County.
There's no money to steal, apparently.
It takes three people to get paid in anything that you go to do. And you know, it's just that I want people to learn that we all got to play on the same team. Put your differences aside. Quit attacking each other. Here's the thing. Elections bring division. I've never seen the attacks like it's going on this time. But but the biggest message that I can give the commission is there's going to be a time, September 1st, that all these differences are going to have to be laid aside. You can't have the us versus them and get anything done good for the county. You're going to have to sit down at the table and say, we all got to work together. This can't be about attacking each other. It's got to be, attacks don't do anything. You've got to be able to say, I'm going to man up, sit down at this table. If I agree with your theology or whatever, we're going to set that aside and we're going to discuss what's best for this county and what is going to put money in the coffers, that it don't take the people that live here everything they got to live here. That's what a commissioner needs to do. You're a legislator. You hold no control over anything else but the power of the purse for one vote. That's your job. You're a commissioner the moment you vote. And you know, that's just how it works.
Hopefully there can be some crossing of the aisles and shaking of the hands, and it'd be nice if it could happen in this budget season.
It surely would. You know, nothing would make me happier for the people that's trying to, you know, to not be able to put it in any different words, self-promotion in county government don't work. Right. You know, you got to walk in with, as John Neal used to say, put your hat in your hand and come in and sit down and be willing to listen. You know, a busted clock's right twice a day. So I don't care how far off somebody gets in their comments and what they meant to say and didn't say or whatever. You know, cut some people some slack. Don't hang on their every word. And be willing to listen. Everybody can learn from everybody, but when you want to be an individual in a group, that just don't work, because it's a negative influence. The power of positive thought. Be positive about what you want to do. We're doing this for the county. We're not doing this to make me look better in the news media. I'm not doing it to get a front headline. John Neal used to always say, it doesn't matter. You can do all kinds of wonderful things, but it doesn't matter if you don't care who gets the credit. Quit worrying about the credit. That's my message to the commission and everybody. Put that aside. Put aside who gets the credit for this. Whose idea was it? It don't matter. If it works and it helps the people of Jefferson County, that's what you need to be doing. Who cares? If they never sign my name to anything again, I'm good with that. I'll just vote and go home. But stop caring about, well, I was right and they were wrong. Wait a minute, that's another debatable issue,
Well, and also, it would behoove everyone to remember that there are districts for a reason, and our districts in Jefferson County are vastly different.
Sure.
So just
different.
Just because it works for your district does not mean that it works for every district. So you have to kind of turn on like they tell the kindergarten kids, put your ears on and listen and see what is going on in everybody else's backyard.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. It's good to be able to let people know actually what's going on in Jefferson County without the social media influence, which it's a great place for people to go and to share ideas, but it's also a great place to get lost in rhetoric that is not.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I appreciate you guys having me and doing these interviews. It's good to get to talk about it and, get the word out to people and say, hey, give me a call sometime.
Right.
I'm your chairman. Give me a call. We'll talk about it.
Terrific,
and
yeah.
I've had a lot of people that I've had very different opinions with, that here lately we sat down and we hashed out our differences, and I found out, we get along just fine. It's just we were on two different levels.
And that's the beautiful thing when politics works.
That's it.
When politics works.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, and thank you to our sponsors, Good Old Boys Golf Carts at 434 Tennessee Highway 92 in Dandridge, and they also have a new location in Sevierville. You can check out either of those places for great deals on golf carts, and they have some new product that everybody needs to go check out. And Dr. Warren Stinson at 113 East Broadway Boulevard in Jefferson City. He has been an established dentist in this area for many, many years, and he can fix all of your dental needs. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman. Good luck, and we will see you soon.
All righty. Have a good day.